Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to a new episode. Why are you standing here? You scared me. In August 26, 1819, the American newspapers published the following news. Charles Lennox, the Governor-General of British North America, and the 4th Duke of Richmond, was on a forest inspection tour on the banks of Ottawa River. He camped there with his escorts and had a party. However, he leaned to his friend Colonel Cockburn while holding a glass and said, "I don't know how it is, Cockburn, but I cannot relish my wine tonight as usual, and I feel that if I were a dog I should be shot as a mad one." That's watered-down wine. Why are you so dramatic, Duke? Our Duke's condition started to get worse, my friend. To the point that he couldn't shower. Why? Because he couldn't stand the idea of water. Not for drinking, or anything. And when they agreed that he had to quickly get on a boat and go to Montreal to see a doctor, he wasn't able to get close to the river's edge. Anytime he got close to water, he would get painful muscle spasms. However, he got a hold of himself and shouted, "Charles Lennox never yet was afraid of anything." Then got on the boat. A duke afraid of the water? Is this some sort of joke? And in a few seconds, he was back on land again, and ran out of the boat, much to everyone's surprise. People took him to a nearby farmhouse. However, he kept getting worse until he couldn't stand hearing the sound of water. The murmuring of water that we put on when we study. They lifted him up willy-nilly, like any other patient. He's not a prestigious British duke anymore. Then, they took him to the farm behind the house. They laid him on a pile of hay, and within moments, the 4th Duke of Richmond was gone. It's true that what happened might seem weird to you. But actually this wasn't rare at the time. In fact, normal people knew this condition before doctors at the time, and also had a name for it. It was called hydrophobia, and that was the first medical use of the Old Greek word, phobia, or to be honest, it's the first use ever. Medically or linguistically. At the time in the 19th century, there was almost a complete agreement between doctors and lay experts that it's an illness related to a bite of an animal. Whenever they're not sure, they say, "Oh, he got bit. It was the porcupine." What? That makes no sense. And ordinary experts. Wait. Back then there were ordinary experts, and spicy experts with extra cheese? No, my friend, ordinary experts is a term in older books. It shows that doctors weren't the only healers at the time. There were cupping therapists, barber surgeons, and also frauds. There were sorcerers and witch doctors. That's why hydrophobia was treated as a separate illness, not as a symptom for a disease, because they didn't understand infections yet. And as a diseases, it could have multiple causes, and sometimes conflicting causes leading to conflicting treatments, which includes almost everything from electric shocking, treatment by dancing and drinking blood, to taking pills like belladonna, or atropa, and taking poisons like strychnine. I'm not making this up. There are reported cases in history where this did happen. We don't need to say that many of these treatment strategies brought patients closer to death. I mean, the guy is afraid of water, so you made him dance, electrocuted him, and gave him blood? And if he survived, you give him poison? Just think a little, how will he swallow the poison? There are cases that went through this, and are documented in the Lancet journal itself in the 19th century. Until Louis Pasteur came along, and decided to treat the child Joseph Meister from a dog's bite by giving him 14 shots. Meister was cured because he got vaccinated. Pasteur assumed that the hydrophobia is an infection. He reached the virus responsible and killed it. He prepared shots from it that are taken by the patient to form antibodies. Louis Pasteur did two important things in 1885. He discovered the rabies, and that hydrophobia is only a symptom for it. This was the moment when microbiology was created. That's it? What's so significant? It's a study field based on a dog's bite. On that day, hydrophobia ended as a disease. However, the term phobia will continue on to be a famous and colloquial term in other medical and social language. It will also live on for decades. Phobia as a suffix. It started with Greek mythology, or myths. It appeared as a name for Phobos, the god of fear, and the son of Ares and Aphrodite. Yes, bro. I see them at the social club. Well, my friend, if you're interested in the Greek family tree and want a partner, this tree is for you. Just careful not to choose from the wind gods. Let's just say they're not so fun. The Ides of phobia, or irrational fear from things, animals, or situations, is a mental complaint that has existed since Hippocrates in the 5th century BC. However, it's said that the first person to use the word phobia to express it is Aulus Cornelius Celsus. His mother named him Aul as she couldn't find better names. Aulus was a Roman scientist who was born in 25 BC. He used this word when he coined the term hydrophobia, and in a University of Pennsylvania dissertation, Don James McLaughlin discussed the history of the word phobia and what it means in a dissertation titled Infectious Affect: The Phobic Imagination in American Literature. Dr. McLaughlin traced the usage of the word phobia and mentioned how the 30s of the 19th century witnessed the birth of terms like colorphobia or negrophobia. And he noticed that the separation between the hydrophobia as a symptom for a disease and the phobia itself began after the American Civil War in the postbellum period. Meaning, after 1865, by the German psychiatrist Carl Friedrich Otto Westphal. He was probably the coach for the Borussia Mönchengladbach club. That will be a problem if they played away against Atletico de Madrid, because the stadium is called Wanda Metropolitano. A whole big deal about names that you don't care about. You want to talk phobia, right? You got it. Anyway, this doctor coined the term agoraphobia in 1871. And after that, different names of phobias were used to describe types of fear. And for Louis Pasteur, the dissertation discusses that the term phobia went into languages, cultures, arts, and politics through continuous usage, especially in the medical society in the 19th century around hydrophobia, which is one of the symptoms of rabies, like we said. And that ended with the total separation between phobia and rabies after Louis Pasteur's discovery. And almost 150 years later, everyone started using the term phobia and defining it as a common mental disorder in a very obvious and crystal clear way. The current scientific definition of phobia, or specific phobia, according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, is that it's fear or anxiety about a specific object or situation. The phobic object or situation almost always provokes immediate fear or anxiety. And when the patient is faced with this phobic object, they either completely avoid it, or they try to endure it, but with intense fear and anxiety. One important detail: this fear is out of proportion to the actual danger posed by the specific object or situation, and to the socio-cultural context. Also, these signs should at least last for 6 months, and they have to causes clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. The phobia is a disorder related to the family of anxiety. And phobia is so common that 7.4% of humans suffer from it at least once in their lives, and it's known that it appears more in women. According to the definition, the most important points to diagnose phobia are: yes, that's right, my friend. Fear is out of proportion to the actual danger and to the socio-cultural context. Meaning that, fear of lions can't be a phobia, because it's scary to all of us. It's in proportion to the real danger of lions. It's not just a hairy animal with a beard. It's danger. Despite all that, my friend, if you are a part of El Hell family, the most famous family in circus and raising lions in Egypt, then we probably can't give that example. After weaning, every baby in this family raises a cub. Then, they start their circus career together. Or, if you were raised in a village in the outskirts of Guinea forests, your minor fear of lions is ruled by the socio-cultural context. The DSM-5 divides the types of phobia into 4 types. These are the main and most common types of phobic objects or situations. The first type are animals, like spiders and insects. The second type is natural environment, such as heights and storms. The third type is blood injection injury, which is any injection that causes blood, like shots, needles, or medical and surgical procedures. The fourth type is some phobic situations, such as planes, elevators, closed places, and crowded places. There's also a space for a fifth type, which is other objects and situations. These are objects and situations that doesn't belong to other types, but they can cause phobia. My dear viewer, in order to diagnose any mental disorder, the symptoms have to cause intense distress and a social or occupational impairment. I mean, we're all disgusted by cockroaches and fear the type that flies in our face. But we deal with it, whether by using a slipper or a mop, each one according to their own socio-cultural context. However, if a person refuses to sleep in a place where there only might be one small roach, and would literally rather sleep outside in the cold, then he's ill and needs therapy. Unfortunately, science doesn't know how phobia is created till this day. There are theories about it being genetic, and there are 2 main theories: that it's an old experience lived by the person, whether he knows and remembers it or not. Or, it's an internalization of another's experience, and that's what they call phobia based on observation. I just call it seeing other people's problems. Did you coin that? Yes, I punched it too. To understand phobia based on observation, imagine a guy who saw his friend drowning. In this case, he didn't drown, or get in the water. He even forgot his trunks at home. But he observed an example. So, he acquired a phobia from water, or drowning. There are two other separate types of phobia, other than the specific phobia. The social phobia, or what's known today as social anxiety disorder, which, from its name, is related to being in social situations, such as parties, presentations, lectures, even eating at restaurants, and using public bathrooms. Clean public bathrooms. The other is agoraphobia. If you remember, that's the phobia described by Dr. Westphal. He's the Borussia coach, right? You believed that? I was joking. Can't make jokes anymore, my friend. I'm afraid you will take them seriously. Agoraphobia is a very unfortunate case. It commonly forces the person who has it to stick to their home, and sometimes to stick to their bedrooms only for years and sometimes for decades. Phobias aren't difficult to treat. It's basically psychotherapy, which is represented in CBT, or what's known as cognitive behavioral therapy. This cognitive behavioral therapy is done by the gradual exposure of the patient to their phobic object, the thing they fear, through sessions that start with a quick flashing of images, and end with exposing the patient to the thing they fear, such as a snake, or a real spider to hold. Simultaneously, techniques are used to calm the patient, such as playing calm music and other techniques. This is called exposure therapy. Bro, we learned that everything has pros and cons. True. Now tell us, what's wrong with exposure therapy? And why don't they just use medication? The problem with exposure therapy, other than its name, is that there are views in the modern psychology that say it doesn't even help. What? Modern psychology says that? Yes. Why are you mad, my friend? Did exposure therapy expose the secrets of universe to you? It's okay, my friend. Just criticizing a form of therapy. Now let me tell you about the modern theory in biological psychiatry. How this theory explains fear and anxiety. It's related to memory and how it's formed. For an entire century, my friend, medicine's idea about memory formation was simple. This idea was that information is stored in the short-term memory, and it takes a very long time to develop, and turn into a long-term memory as time passes. A simple process where memory is solidified and held, and it can't be changed when it reaches that level. That's called memory consolidation. However, for the past 2 decades, researchers have proved that this isn't just a one-way process, because when we activate this long-term memory and recall certain information, it goes through a process of restructuring, and is held in a newer form. It goes through a process similar to forming new memories. That's why they called it memory reconsolidation, as mentioned in a research with that name in the current biology journal in 2013. But notice that what I just told you is regarding the normal memory, such as your old memories at elementary school, or memories that happened 10 years ago. That stuff. However, regrading painful memory, it's different. Have you ever wondered why do you lose your wallet? But we'll never forget an assault, or an old accident. And why a girl could forget everything in her life, but always remember a kidnapping attempt. God forbid, where the memory keeps repeating, and giving her flashbacks, like what happens with people who have PTSD. Because fear and anxiety evoke emotional memory, as they increase the levels of norepinephrine in the brain. This substance is adrenaline's sister. In case you want to put in their family register. This substance enhances the emotional learning. So, the brain forms a fearful memory, not a regular memory like where your wallet is or what you had for lunch. And to stay on topic before it scientifically gets out of hand, and we drown in sources and hyperlinks, let's say, in short, that the formation of painful memories is different from the formation of regular ones. And recollecting it, which will result in reconsolidation, also happens in a state of fear and anxiety, in addition to the norepinephrine, which amplifies the painful experience. So, every time you see a cockroach, norepinephrine is released. And in every time, the painful memory is reformed and amplified. Anxiety, fear, a never-ending agonizing cycle. Going back to the CBT, because we wandered away, and treated it unfairly. Gradual exposure therapy doesn't erase the painful memory. For those who thought so, it deals with forming a new memory without fear. But it exists together with the old one. It makes the patient cope with the existence of both memories, the good one and the bad one. However, one of the cons of CBT is the possibility of the phobia returning again after a while. This is what Dr. Richard Friedman talked about, a professor of clinical psychiatry. What? Professor of clinical psychiatry. What, bro? He's a psychiatrist, my friend. A professor of. Wait, I can do it. A professor of clinical psychiatry. Clinical psychiatrist for short, at Weill Cornell Medical College. Friedman says that someone went to him after having a panic attack. And that panic attack happened to him while he was on vacation in the mountains in Costa Rica. The guy simply had acrophobia, and he was treated a year earlier by exposure therapy, and it worked. However, when he climbed a mountain again, he experienced it again. Friedman, in his important article in the New York Times, defends a new approach for treating phobias, a chemical or medicinal approach. Why don't we present the patient with the phobic object, and in the predicted moment of reforming the painful memory, which is the reconsolidation, we quickly suppress the effect of the norepinephrine. So, the new memory is reformed without fear. I don't get it. In simple words, you have a psychological experience related to a chemical. So, Dr. Friedman says you don't have to mimic the experience every time. No. You can just create it once, and during the release of the chemical that tells your body, be scared now. Quickly, medicine chimes in, rolls up his sleeves, and stops the release of said chemical. So, you have the experience without the chemical. And if you see the object you fear again, you won't feel anything. A cockroach. Hi, how are you? In short, we bring the patient, put a spider in his hands, and give him a thing called beta blockers in the form of pills. So, when the norepinephrine is released, it doesn't work due to the beta blockers. It's like we turned it off. So, our patient is not scared. And when the patient isn't afraid from the object of phobia, a new memory is formed free of fear, and that memory stays in his head. The spider now is erased from the list of your phobic objects, then we deal with the next. Honestly, my friend, this isn't a hypothetical theory for Friedman. Actually, he was talking about a study that was already successfully done. It was published in 2015 in the Biological Psychology journal by a Dutch psychologist. And in his article, A Drug to Cure Fear, Friedman argued that this could be the future cure to phobias, and also PTSD. It's an entirely new approach to chemically deal with fear and anxiety, something under the slogan, take a pill, and make the phobia chill. Imagine, my friend, if we no longer fear anything. That's a very scary thought, bro. I should take a pill for it. I don't mean phobias, my friend, or the courage pills in The Land of Hypocrisy movie. I mean if we no longer fear things that we are supposed to fear under normal situations. I mean if our human turned into a fearless one who doesn't fear anything even if it's normal. Meaning, to be lion-hearted. The old saying goes, it's better to be safe than sorry, and running takes courage, and better a live coward than a dead hero, and once bitten, twice shy. Bro, isn't this show to simplify science and stuff? What are we doing at the fortune tellers? I meant, my friend, by using folklore to tell you that fear saved many people's lives before. And it might be a reason for a species' survival, and others' extinction. Imagine if humans don't fear carnivorous animals. Believers in evolutionary psychology, like Dr. Friedman, say that fear is a mechanism developed by creatures for their sake. Fear is now hardwired in humans, my friend. It exists in their nature as a means of survival and life. An instinct, as we call it. An instinct that develops with our lives, habits, and sociocultural contexts. A baby could play with a lion very innocently, until one time. What, you didn't know I roar? I'm an expert roarer, by the way. Here, the roar frightens the baby just from how loud it is. Or you could be a baby playing innocently with a dog, until it bites you. Why fear dogs then? The evolutionary psychology theory will try to explain all these things. It argues that humans are just like animals. They acquired their instincts across millions of years. There are explanations for fears of the dark, snakes, and heights. They don't have to be true, but they hypothetical theories and efforts. What matters is that the conclusion for all these theories is that fear is good for us. It's true. Better safe than sorry. If we look linguistically, we will find that fear isn't a bad thing. And it's not the opposite of courage. The opposite of fear is security, peace, and comfort. All humans fear something and they have too, it's normal. What's the opposite of courage then? Cowardice, my friend. Does it moo? Cowardice is a whole different thing from fear. Fear is a feeling, but cowardice is a choice. You could choose cowardice because of fear. Let me tell you that in our sociocultural context, we describe cowardice as an unfavored choice. Meaning, there are more favorable choices. Cowardice wasn't the best choice, but you got scared, and fear moved you, or froze you. Same thing. The person who doesn't allow fear to control him is called brave. But, the kid who reached out for the lion isn't brave, he just doesn't know. That's what Al-Mutanabbi meant by, the mind before a brave's bravery is the first, and the other is the second. Meaning, you have to have logical thinking before deciding to do something. Knowledge is more important than bravery. And like the character Abdelmalek Zarzur says, bravery is great for sure, but fighting back is a craft and has rules. And your dramatic entrance isn't crafty, or anywhere near the rules. And regrading animals, the instinct is the main motive. Try making a loud noise while holding a cat, my friend. Tell me about it. No, seriously, tell me about it because I don't know. Your face will look like Mall of Arabia on a Friday afternoon. There's no place for a single foot form, all the scratches. The cat will ruin you. That's because her fear from the loud noise you made will motivate her survival instinct. And her reaction will not be calculated at all. The same idea if you cornered a dog, or entered his territory without caution, or permission from his owner. Here, instincts are the drive. Humans also get scared and have instincts. The difference between humans and animals is that humans are able to elevate their humanity, and start acting like humans instead of like animals. And there's that one saying that tells them, when the flood comes, save yourself first. And another says, fear is the best teacher, and hit your friend, if they're more. But humans always have the choice, and will always understand and be responsible for their choices. They can't blame their instincts and make excuses. Stephen Covey said in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. Between the stimulus and the choice we will make, there's a space. That space is the space to make our decisions. How will we react? And Stephen Covey ends his quote saying, in our response lies our growth and our happiness. And for Dr. Covey, that meaning was inspired by Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote the great book, Man's Search for Meaning. Humans, my friend, have a cerebral cortex and functions unlike other animals. They have imagination, history, and insightful reflection, which is the ability to evaluate one's decisions and criticize them. That's why humans have levels of bravery and fear. They have a clear difference between fear and cowardice, and they know it, and between chivalry and just bravery. Not everybody has to be revolutionary and change the world. It's normal to have leaders and followers. And if courage, bravery, generosity, and kindness were easy, then everyone would be heroes. Like Al-Mutanabbi's poem, Sorry, I'm feeling Al-Mutanabbi today. Without hardship, everyone is the same. Because for them, kindness brings poverty and bravery kills. It doesn't matter if you're not a leader, as long as you're human. You could be a big tall human afraid of guavas, but it matters more to be a good human. That's why, in all honesty, my friend, I, personally, am not a fan of this chemical intervention for fear. And I don't feel good about fear disappearing from our lives. It's our choice. I wish the irrational fears, or phobias, disappear from the world, but I'm afraid of fear ending. I think that humans need it. We need to fear more. People knew irrational fears a long time age, but the thing that got their attention was hydrophobia. Imagine a person afraid of water. That's 70% of Earth. Imagine a person afraid of the thing that keeps him alive. That's why for long centuries, it consumed them until they understood it. Hydrophobia is caused by disturbance in the nervous system due to rabies. The virus that loves nerves. This disturbance causes the throat, which is what connects the mouth to the esophagus, to experience extremely painful muscle spasms with swallowing. Spasms that start whenever the brain experiences sensory input related to water. Do you know how many times you deal with water a day? You see water around you everywhere. You hear the sound of water all the time. You drink water, you do water. Your whole life is water. Now imagine seeing a patient who has hydrophobia and too scared to drink. When he sees the cup of water, these spasms start. That's when he runs away and closes his eyes, trying to stop his brain from picturing water that is causing all this pain. Humans treated the hydrophobia, and it almost disappeared from the world when they understood it. Sadly, however, thousands of cases of rabies exist yearly, specifically in India, due to the spread of unvaccinated stray dogs. Even in America, a few cases happen each year that are mainly caused by bats. And if the patient was late, and the disease spread, he could go to the hospital with the final symptoms of this awful disease, which includes the hydrophobia. And the chances of survival when you reach that stage are almost zero. Despite being the origin of the term, it's not considered today's phobia. And they separate it from aquaphobia, which is a simple phobia of water that could be diagnosed, understood, and treated easily with CBT. And it doesn't have any organic cause or danger. Unless you're not treated, and too scared to shower, and decided to live like Isawi, a bohemian who does what he wants. Then, you will be a danger to society. Phobia is a mental disorder, and there's no need to be ashamed. We're all going through this life together, and no one is better than others. However, the justified normal fear that could be a motive for survival and existence. The phrase, beauty of the soul, is beautiful to express our survival instincts. Humans are smarter creatures with the ability to choose. And at a certain moment, no matter how brave, courageous, chivalrous, or fearless you are, you might need to run away, escape, even for a brief moment. Flight followed by fight. A strategical retreat. That's it, my friend. Finally, don't forget to watch the old episodes and the new ones. Look at the sources, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. You know what I fear the most? Nothing. Let me recall a joke at the end of the episode taken from Woody Allen. He asked his mom, where babies come from, but she heard it, where rabies came from. So, she said if we're bitten by a dog. He said the following week he was walking down the street, and saw a woman who gave birth to triplets. So, he said, wow, a huge dog must have bit her. I love babies, my friend. That's it. I hope you liked the joke, and I hope you see more movies for Woody Allen. And I have an advice from the great singer Muhammad Fouad, never be afraid, or be this scared. No, 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 no,